afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, your host Imperial Dane. We got a bit of a surprise here. Patch has been announced for July 21st. Yes, indeed, another patch before the British will be coming September, so there probably won't be anything August. Of course, September, Brits, larger design changes, apparently all happening there, so there's going to be a lot of stuff happening there as well. But until then, we got one more patch here in July, and we're even getting a chance to beta test it. There will be today, as of this video. Later on, there will be a little balance mod you can, oh my apologies there, download. So try out some more of these new changes. And of course you might be wondering, what are these new changes, oh glorious leader, I mean Imperial Dane? What are they and what do you think of them? Obviously, since that tends to be, the idea, most people sort of go to me for, what do you think of these changes? What are the changes? I mean, there's actually a lot of changes to the game, the core game, if you will. And of course, what are those? I mean, there's, for example, a large amount of changes, for example, to the Soviets, how they work. I mean, they've still got the first tier, this Special Rifle Command Support Company, but after that, they actually got more tiers now. They have a tier 2 and they have a tier 3. Essentially, what happened is one building, the Tank of Tank Command, basically has been turned into their tier 2, which now has the S-76, the T-70, and the half-track inside. It's a bit cheaper than the otherwise old Tank of Tank Command, so in that regard, there's a bit of tier 2 there, but again, all the light vehicles have been pulled together there. Then there's the third tier, where the Tank of a Tank Command, the Mechanized Armor Company with the T-3476, S-35, and the Katyusha. Also, things to note then, on top of that, the T-34 has been made cheaper. It is down to 80 fuel and 300 manpower. In terms of fuel, you can actually get 3 T-34s for the amount of, less the fuel. That actually takes a Wehrmacht player to get out 2 Panzer IVs. Hell, it's cheaper than a Stuhl G in terms of fuel. So, I mean, in that regard, the T-3476 has received a bit of a buff. So, I mean, that's a little detail there to keep in mind overall. Plus, the T-35 has been made, no longer calling. It now requires you have the third tier up. That is the Mechanized Armor Company, in which case it's been sort of built from it. You don't no longer even require command points. You just need the building and the doctrine. If you got those two things, you can basically get a T-35 out as soon as you rush for it. So in that regard, we might see more T-35 rushes, but not quite in the same way as previously. So it's not going to be quite the same impact, but of course now people can actually get them out earlier if they really work for it with several fuel catchers, if you will. So there's some larger changes there. So to tell you, the Howitzer has now received more shots. It's lost its precision strike ability, instead it gets even more shots. So Soviet Veterans 1 Howitzer, for example, can actually fire 10 shots in every barrage. So in that regard, it does pack a bit more of a punch. The Maxim now also has a bit more suppression versus larger units, sort of add on the fun. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Besides that, I don't think there's any really huge Soviet changes there, but again, those are some actually pretty big ones nonetheless. There's also been sort of overall larger changes to command points. For example, all heavy armor now requires, I think it's 2 more command points. So, for example, the Tiger is now 13, IS-2 13, Tiger A 17, so it's actually even further back now, and so on. Medium armor in some regards, lighter stuff has been made sort of, either command point cheaper or more expensive. For example, the Puma now costs 5, Stugi costs 7, I think, and so on. So there's been some changes there as well, sort of overall, sort of looking at things there. But again, some big changes to sort of how they function in terms of tiers and, what they can do. And that's only going to have some larger effects in terms of strategies. There might be some more rush strategies to also ride around. But again, while the building has been made cheaper, I think it's about 1/4 cheaper. It's going to have an effect, but it's not going to have a huge effect that the Wehrmacht can't keep up, even the changes the Wehrmacht have received. But of course, I'll get into them in a bit. So those are some big changes there to the soldiers. I mean, that's really going to affect how they play. I mean, in some sense, it's going to be a bit more sort of linear, but at the same time, overall, they can get all their stuff cheaper, close to 50% cheaper. I think 25-30% cheaper still. Is cheaper, and again it's sort of more layered and tiered. Plus, of course, now they can get the T-35 even more easy if they want to. So that's a bit of a difference there, ladies and gentlemen, and should certainly not be ignored. Then we have the US forces, which have also received some changes. They've had the same thing with their EC-8, by the way, as the T-35. It's now available in the building. So again, in theory, American can now rush for it easier, but again, they do require that tier, so slight difference there as well. Another big one though for the Americans is BARs and bazookas, now one upgrade. One upgrade. Yes indeed, ladies and gentlemen, one upgrade. I don't know what's going to happen to the bulletin specifically. Relic said something's happening beyond that. I don't know. But something's basically happening with bulletins, so I think that's all I can say, I hope, anyways. Hope I'm not betraying any sort of NDA there, but I think I should be able to say that something's happening here with the bulletins. Anyways, I mean, they're going to be changed, obviously, to sort of fit into it. But beyond that, I don't know. So there's a bit of change there. The Major's been more expensive. The Captain, on the other hand, has been made cheaper, so you can actually rush out a Stuart faster now, which I am slightly worried about. But again, bazookas, BARs, now one upgrade. Huge cost save there for the Americans. Really gives them a lot more flexibility in that sense. Throw in on the fact as well, cheaper Captain. Pack House has also been made cheaper now. It costs 100 less manpower. That's also going to have a notable effect. I think it was at least 100 cheaper. That is, of course, alongside the EC8. Those will also have some notable impacts on gameplay. I think there might be some other changes. For example, the P-47 rocket strafe, where basically sort of searches for targets, that has been made slightly smaller, but not vastly or hugely so. So there's some changes made again. Overall, of course, one of the goals is basically for Relic to sort of make light vehicle play, happen a bit more, comedy. So again, I mean, in that sense, so far looking at allies, it does make sense. So light vehicles, more accessible. American light vehicles, more accessible. Heavier stuff has been moved, well, in some sense, like for the Americans, for the Soviets, it's probably actually somewhat slightly, closer in the end, nonetheless, or at least their full arsenal is. And of course, the T-34's been more of a numbers tank, which again, it was. So I mean, that sort of largely covers sort of at least the important things, I think, for the Americans. I'm rather having to sort of go by memory on this, as always. And then, of course, we have the Oberkommando West. There's been some changes as well. Nothing quite as earth-shattering, though, as what the Allies have, obviously. You rarely get that for the Oberkommando West. But still some interesting changes. Sturmtiger now made doctrinal. It's part of elite armor. And, of course, those are wondering what happens then with the Panzer IV. It's been made non-doctrinal. And, on top of that, it doesn't require upgrades for the armoured skirts. It starts up with the armoured skirts stats rolled alongside the regular Panzer IV now, so basically for the same price, well, not technically the same price, since you of course have to sort of factor in the fuel hike there for the Oberkommando West still. You basically get a tougher Panzer IV with access to 5 levels of veterancy, and that should actually make a difference. So that should actually broaden up the options of the Wehrmacht quite considerably. Now they sort of had a middle thing there between the Luchs and the Panther. Although it might be a bit too close to the Panther in terms of cost, and a part of me might suggest just lowering the fuel cost a bit there on the Panzer IV. Just a bit. But that should overall lead to some more strategies there. And tactics, light infantry gun has also seen a manpower decrease, so that's also going to be cheerful and helpful. And on top of that, Sturm Pioneers now, of course, sort of less upkeep. They also require less sort of replenish with. I would have liked to see the experience cost also decrease, though. That sadly did not happen. I think that would have actually been a better choice overall, since that's basically, in my opinion, all been one of the big issues with the Sturm Pioneers. They take such a bloody long, hard time to get anywhere good with their experience. So I think that would have been a better choice overall than the other bits. But, still appreciate it, I suppose. Though in the end, I still think they need some, cheaper, or more faster experience gain. Beyond that, there's not actually really a lot there for the Oberkommando. It's basically just the Panzer IV Sturmtiger changes, Sturm Pioneers, and the, light infantry gun, which again is cheaper now. Also good, of course, we might see a bit more of them since they're not quite as punitively expensive towards the Oberkommando West player. Beyond that, again, there's not a lot there. I mean, that was basically, again, those are the over points there. Then we have the Wehrmacht. There are some larger changes. Well, nothing again, no earth-shattering as the Soviets or the US, but still something to take note of. For example, the MU-4 has been moved to the headquarters, and actually it's also more expensive, takes a bit longer to train. So, more accessible, and essentially, I suppose you could sort of try some more strategies with Ostrom or sort of this, but I'm not sure how much of an effect it's going to have with the cost increase and a build time increase. I mean, there's of course also the increase in manpower available to the Wehrmacht up to 420. That's about 60 more manpower. I mean, they might need some more different strategies. Of course, 2 pioneers might be a bit more functional, but beyond that, I'm not entirely sure how much of an effect it's going to have. There's also another one. They basically went ahead and made Wehrmacht taking overall more expensive, about 25, 30, 40% more expensive in sense of fuel. I mean, the tech itself is cheaper, but the buildings themselves are more expensive. We're talking 30 to 40 fuel for each building there. So in that sense, going for 4 tiers, notably more expensive for the Wehrmacht. Of course, they can rush for tier 4 a bit better now. That's sort of what you want to try from, say, if I'm go tier 1, tier 2, then hit for tier 4. In a sense, it's going to be a bit cheaper to achieve, I think. But overall, it's not going to be that huge an effect, actually, with the overall cost increase there has been. But I suppose in theory, it should be more permissible. And of course in that regard there's also where things sort of slightly go off the rails when it comes to sort of light vehicle play, because as we all know, Wehrmacht light vehicle play is, not too strong. I mean, both the armoured vehicles, that is the scout car, the half-track, has basically cardboard for armour. Now of course when they have to sort of do them all with Stuarts, T-70s, SU-26s, and they're not quite cutting it out of there. I mean, that's basically where it doesn't make any sense for me. And they need to either buff the 221, 222, 251 in some way, and maybe make the flamethrower upgrade cheaper, more effective, more accessible, sort of make up for the fact again we for example have the Sode A half track, which can just mow up everything of the Wehrmacht tier 2. I mean, something's definitely not quite adding up there, to put it mildly, and that's definitely something Relic's going to have to look into in this coming week. Otherwise, there's going to be some problems, because there's absolutely no benefits to Wehrmacht tier 2. There's been nothing there, so at least sort of help shore that one up a bit. So I mean, unless they are planning on sneaking in a Panzer III or somehow getting a Pack 40 upgrade for the half-track, I think there's going to be some problems there, to put it mildly. I mean, we might see more tier 3 rushes simply because again, it's going to be Pack 40s and Panzer Grenadiers with maybe a half-track sort of cover things up, because the Americans and the Soviets can hit lighter armor faster, and the 221, 222 is simply not going to cut it. It was barely cutting it before versus, say, even the M20, which only had a 50 caliber. And now with faster Stuarts, T-70s, M6s, it's definitely going to see a lot of hurt. So there are definite problems there on the horizon, I would say, in that regard. Panzerwehr, for some reason, got an experience decrease rather than an actual further effect on the rocket strike. I found that one a bit curious. I think suppression added just more effect on the rockets would have been better, not a decrease in experience, since 20% less of nothing is not going to really make much of a difference there for that. Also, close air support has been nerfed. The sort of fuel trade ability not quite as effective anymore, plus has been added a further delay to the Stuka strafe, both machine guns and Kanonenvogel. So some changes there. I mean, overall, it looks interesting. I mean, it's overall really benefiting the Allies. Oberkommando, the main issues that the Oberkommando West suffers. But again, it seems like it's not going to do that. Maybe again, that's what they're waiting for September. Volksgrenadiers instead of Volksgrenadiers, not Volkssturm by any other name. More cohesive, actually sort of resembling the historical unit, the Jagdpanzer IV, which is not a Guderian stuck. Yada yada yada. And again, considering the light vehicle goal, again, largely holds up, except for the Wehrmacht. They're going to need to look into that one there, otherwise, it looks going to be some complaints here and there, of course, from people, again, who are having a hard time adapting, or who's got some kind of imaginary world set up in their heads where either side they favour is being sort of grossly replaced by Relic, But overall, it should be interesting as long, of course, it keeps your wits about you, and of course react, adapt, and of course, not think in sharp straight lines. Always maneuver, always try to flank, and if anything fails, try to use smoke. So some thoughts there anyways. And hopefully, of course, this will sort of enlighten you as to the upcoming patch. Gave me some ideas, of course, feel free to test it out, feel free to give Relic feedback, and of course feel free to ask him what the bloody hell is asking with Wehrmacht tier 2, because that's not really cohering with their stated goal of light vehicle play. But again, hopefully overall, this should have enlightened you, and again gives ideas of what things can go in. I mean, again, overall, I'm just going to see more strategies from the Soviets, Americans, more, well, overall light vehicle rushes. Wehrmacht tier 3 rush, I think, is going to be a bit more popular. Obviously, in the Oberkommando West, we might see more Panzerforce. Obviously, I mean, there's going to be a bit more flexibility. Overall, the Oberkommando West is probably going to be one that sees the least change in some regards. They might, of course, be forced to rack more. So, of course, we might see more Pumas, but beyond that, it's harder to say. Wehrmacht, again, more MG42 play in a sense. Some other things there. So, overall, should be interesting to see. But again, I do have some reservations again over the Wehrmacht Tier 2. But overall, again, I think we should be seeing some more interesting play and some more interesting strategies. So, that should overall be good. And of course, feel free to sort of provide your own commentary in the channel chat there, of course, as you sort of play it out yourself, and you get some ideas and with your own thoughts. So hopefully you all enjoyed this. Hopefully you all learned something from it. If you did, feel free to subscribe, tell your friends, share it with everybody. If this is Imperial, cheers, thank you all for watching. Cheers, and thanks you all for watching. Good Lord there, and see you all another time. Bye.